Hi, I'm Teresa Kanan with Stitch and Tree Quilts, and this is the North to Alaska quilt. And today I'm going to show you a simple method for making the stars in the sky, the friendship stars that use half square triangles. We'll be using a method that doesn't involve cutting triangles and piecing them together. You will construct your friendship star using 8 pieces of sky fabric and 5 pieces of the white star fabric. I realize that the fabric has a print on one side and not on the other that is very difficult to see just by looking at it. And to be quite honest with you, if you can't see the white on white, which side is right, when you're looking at it, it's not going to matter which side you use when you put it in your quilt. For the purpose of this demonstration, I have all the 5 pieces right side up. You'll be constructing 2 stars with the lightest sky fabric, 8 stars with the medium sky fabric, and 4 stars with the dark sky fabric. So for each of those, you will need to have 4 half squares. The 2 stars from the light sky fabric means you need to have 4 half square units of the light. You're going to need 32 half square units of the medium and 16 half square units of the dark. We're going to be constructing the half square units using a square of each stitched diagonally down the center. And in order to stitch it diagonally down the center, we're going to need to be able to mark the center. Marking the diagonal on the half square can be done in one of 2 ways. I've removed the sky fabric so that I just have the white star fabric that I'll be working with. I am marking my diagonal on the white because it's easier to see. If you have a white chalk pencil, you could also try to mark your diagonal on the dark blue. It's just a little harder to see. So on the wrong side of the fabric, I can use a ruler and a chalk pencil or just a pencil. It doesn't matter. And I can mark that diagonal line so that I can see it when I'm stitching. Or the method I prefer is with wrong sides together to fold my triangle in half and to press it for approximately 5 seconds or 5 Alaskas. That gives me a nice, crisp, pressed line that I'll use. And I'm going to need to use that pressing when I'm pressing the star anyway. So whether you mark your line or press your line, either way, you'll be sewing on that diagonal line. Another reason that I like to press the diagonal lines onto my fabric when I'm using this method is that if there's any inconsistencies in the way that I've cut, it's going to show up when I fold that over to see if the triangle is a true triangle. Whereas when I mark a diagonal, if there's an inconsistency in my cut and it's not exactly 1.5 inch square, you're not going to know that from your marked line. You won't know that if you are off. On this particular square, you can see just slightly, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, that part of my square is off. I won't worry about a 1/16 of an inch, or more than that. I might consider trimming that square down. With right sides together, I will place my marked star fabric on top of my blue sky fabric, and I'll stitch diagonally down that marking or the fold. And I can chain piece these quite easily. I've got a beginner in place so that I don't lose that point at the beginning of my seam. And I'm also using an open-toed foot as opposed to using my 1/4 inch foot, so it doesn't press on my fabric as I move through these half squares. The other thing I'm doing differently with these half squares is I've switched to a light neutral thread because I don't want it to shadow the seam when I press these little half squares open for the stars. I don't use pins for this because they're such small units. I can hold them in place with my fingertips. This one happens to be the square that is marked with a pencil. And I'll continue to chain until I have all of the units constructed. As with my flying geese trees, when I am chain piecing, I like to use my chain ripper to pop those chains apart. Allows me just to set them in a pile for the next step, which is cutting those into half squares. When cutting the units into half squares, I very simply take a ruler that's got a nice 1/4 inch line marked on it, and I'll lay that 1/4 inch marking line directly over my seam. Trim 1/4 inch outside of the seam, and this part can get tossed away. I like to keep all my scraps for a dog bed. And you'll do that for each of your squares. Again, cutting outside of that seam so that when you get ready to press, you're going to press these units toward the dark. So you'll set the iron on your unit for about 5 seconds to set that seam. Open it, and then set the iron on there again. And then you'll have your 1.5 inch cut half square triangle. You'll make the number that are indicated on the chart and then put them together when we get together on the ship. For now, you just need to make the half square triangle.